Imagine waking up on an ordinary Tuesday. You grab your coffee, check your phone, and everything feels completely normal. Then, your car refuses to start. A mechanic looks at it and calmly says, "It'll be about $3,000. Just a few hours later, your phone rings again. A medical bill arrives that your insurance didn't fully cover. Or maybe your employer announces unexpected layoffs. None of these situations are unusual. In fact, they happen to millions of Americans every year. The real question isn't whether an emergency will happen. It's whether you'll be financially ready when it does. Many people think financial disasters only happen to someone else. But life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Without savings, one unexpected expense can quickly turn into credit card debt, personal loans, months of stress, and years of trying to recover. But there is one simple financial tool that can protect you from this chain reaction. It's called an emergency fund. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much you need, where to keep it, and how to build it faster than you might think. Now that we've seen how quickly life can throw an expensive surprise our way, let's answer the most important question. What exactly is an emergency fund? Simply put, it's money set aside for situations you can't predict, but know will eventually happen. It's not an investment. It's not money for vacations, holiday shopping, or the latest smartphone. It's your financial safety net. Think of it like a seatbelt in your car. You don't wear it because you expect an accident today. You wear it because accidents are unpredictable. An emergency fund works the same way. You hope you'll never need it, but when life takes an unexpected turn, you'll be incredibly glad it's there. Without emergency savings, people often have only a few choices. They swipe a credit card, borrow money, dip into retirement accounts, or delay paying important bills. Every one of those choices can create even bigger financial problems later. An emergency fund gives you something much more valuable than money. It gives you options. It gives you time to think instead of panic. And perhaps most importantly, it gives you peace of mind. Financial security doesn't begin when you become rich. It begins when you're prepared for life's unexpected moments. If having an emergency fund is so important, why don't most people already have one? The answer isn't that people are careless. It's much more complicated. For millions of Americans, every paycheck already has a job before it even arrives. Rent or mortgage payments, car loans, insurance, groceries, utilities, childcare, student loans. By the end of the month, there's often very little left to save. Then there's lifestyle inflation. As income increases, spending often rises just as quickly. A nicer apartment, a newer car, more subscriptions, more dining out. Higher monthly payments become the new normal. Many people also believe emergencies are rare. They assume serious problems happen to someone else. But statistics tell a different story. Cars break down, jobs disappear, medical bills arrive, home repairs can't wait. The result is a dangerous cycle. An unexpected expense appears, credit cards fill the gap, debt grows, and saving becomes even harder. Building an emergency fund isn't about being perfect. It's about breaking that cycle. Even small, consistent savings can slowly replace financial stress with confidence. The first step isn't saving thousands of dollars overnight. It's simply deciding that your future deserves protection. Now comes the question almost everyone asks. How big should your emergency fund actually be? You may have heard people say you need $10,000. Others say $20,000. The truth is much simpler. Your emergency fund shouldn't be based on an arbitrary number. It should be based on your monthly essential expenses. Think about the bills you absolutely must pay to keep your life running: housing, utilities, groceries, insurance, transportation, healthcare, minimum debt payments. Now, imagine that your income suddenly stopped today. How many months could you continue paying those essential expenses? For most people, financial experts recommend saving between 3 and 6 months of essential living expenses. If your job is very stable, 3 months may be enough. If you're self-employed, work on commission, own a business, or have an unpredictable income, 6 months or even more can provide much greater security. Let's say your essential monthly expenses total $4,000. A 3-month emergency fund would be $12,000. A 6-month fund would be $24,000. That may sound like a huge amount, but remember, no one builds it overnight. You build it one paycheck, 1 week, and one small deposit at a time. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is knowing that if life suddenly changes, your financial life won't fall apart with it. Now that you know how much money your emergency fund should contain, there's another important question. Where should you actually keep it? Many people make the mistake of investing their emergency fund in stocks, cryptocurrencies, or other volatile assets. The idea sounds tempting. Why let your money just sit there when it could be earning more? The problem is that emergencies don't wait for the stock market to recover. Imagine losing your job during a market downturn. Suddenly, you're forced to sell investments at a loss just to pay your rent. That's exactly what an emergency fund is designed to prevent. Your emergency savings should always be safe, easy to access, and separate from your everyday spending money. For most Americans, a high-yield savings account is one of the best places to keep an emergency fund. It earns more interest than a regular savings account, while still allowing quick access when you truly need the money Some people also keep a small amount of cash at home for immediate emergencies, but the majority should remain securely in the bank. Remember, this money has only one job: not to make you rich, not to beat the stock market. Its job is to protect your life when the unexpected happens. Sometimes safety is far more valuable than chasing higher returns. At this point, you might be thinking, this all makes sense, but where am I supposed to find thousands of dollars? The good news is that you don't need to. The biggest mistake people make is believing they have to save their entire emergency fund before they even begin. That's not how successful savers think. They focus on the next small milestone. Start with your first $100, then aim for $500, then your first $1,000. Every milestone makes you a little more financially resilient. One of the easiest ways to build your emergency fund is to automate the process. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings account every payday. Even $50 every 2 weeks adds up surprisingly fast. Look for small expenses you barely notice: 1 fewer restaurant meal, 2 canceled subscriptions you never use, brewing coffee at home a few mornings each week. None of these changes will make you feel deprived, but together they can create hundreds or even thousands of dollars over a year. If you receive a tax refund, a work bonus, or extra income from a side hustle, consider putting at least part of it into your emergency fund before spending it. Remember, building financial security isn't about one big decision. It's about making many small decisions that work together over time. Building an emergency fund is a huge step forward. But surprisingly, many people make mistakes that weaken the very protection they're trying to create. The first mistake is using the money for things that aren't real emergencies. A vacation isn't an emergency. A new television isn't an emergency. Holiday shopping isn't an emergency. An emergency fund is for situations that threaten your financial stability, not your lifestyle. The second mistake is investing your emergency savings. Yes, investments can grow over time, but imagine the stock market drops 30% the same week you lose your job. Now you're forced to sell your investments at the worst possible moment. The third mistake is stopping after saving just a few $100s. Your first $1,000 is an excellent beginning, but it's only the beginning. Continue building until your savings can realistically cover several months of essential expenses. Finally, don't keep your emergency fund mixed with your everyday spending account. If it's too easy to spend, eventually you probably will. Create a separate account with a clear purpose. Think of your emergency fund as a fire extinguisher. You don't use it to light candles. You keep it ready for the day you truly need it. You've worked hard to build your emergency fund. Now comes an equally important question. When should you actually use it? The answer is surprisingly simple. Ask yourself 3 questions. First, was this expense unexpected? Second, is it necessary? And third, can it wait? If the answer is that it's unexpected, necessary, and can't wait, then it's probably a real emergency. Losing your job, a major car repair that keeps you from getting to work, a medical bill that must be paid, a broken furnace in the middle of winter, a leaking roof after a storm. These are exactly the situations your emergency fund was created for. But buying a newer phone because your current one feels old? Not an emergency. Booking a vacation because flights are on sale? Not an emergency. Taking advantage of a shopping promotion? Definitely not an emergency. One useful rule is this. If the purchase can be delayed for a month without seriously affecting your life, it probably shouldn't come from your emergency fund. Every time you use this money for the wrong reason, you weaken the protection you've worked so hard to build. Think carefully before touching it. Your future self will thank you. Something interesting happens once you finally build a real emergency fund. Your financial life begins to feel different. Not because you suddenly become rich, but because you stop living in constant fear of the next unexpected expense. A car problem is still inconvenient. A medical bill is still frustrating. A job loss is still stressful. But these events no longer automatically become financial disasters. You have options, and those options change the way you make decisions. You may feel less pressure to accept the first job offer after being laid off. You may have time to find a better solution instead of immediately reaching for a credit card. You may even begin investing with more confidence because you know that your emergency savings are already protecting you. This is one of the most important benefits of an emergency fund. It doesn't just protect your bank account, it protects your ability to make good decisions. Without savings, fear often makes decisions for you. With savings, you have time to think. And time is one of the most valuable financial assets you can have. An emergency fund doesn't eliminate life's problems. It simply makes sure that one unexpected problem doesn't control your entire future. That is the real power of financial security. So, how much money do you really need? The answer isn't the same for everyone. But the path to financial security is surprisingly simple. Start with your essential monthly expenses. Calculate how much you need to survive for 1 month. Then set your first goal. Maybe it's $500. Maybe it's $1,000. The exact number doesn't matter as much as taking the first step. Next, automate your savings. Send a fixed amount into a separate savings account every time you get paid. Then keep building. Work toward 3 months of essential expenses. And eventually, if your situation requires it, aim for 6 months or more.
Keep this money safe, accessible, and separate from your everyday spending. And most importantly, use it only when a genuine emergency threatens your financial stability. You don't need to build your entire emergency fund today. You don't need a perfect income. You don't need to completely change your lifestyle. You simply need to start. Because the first $100 is more powerful than zero. The first month of expenses is more powerful than $100. And every dollar you save gives your future self a little more time, a little more freedom, and a few more choices. An emergency fund won't make you rich overnight,
But it can prevent one bad month from becoming a financial crisis. So start small, stay consistent, and build your safety net $1 at a time. Because financial security isn't about predicting every emergency. It's about being ready when life surprises you.